love. And that's the angle. Joining me now is Larry Kudlow, host of Kudlow on Fox Business, former director of the National Economic Council under Trump. Larry, have you ever seen a more discordant message from a White House on a day that the economic news was so abysmal for the country?
Yeah, you know, the inflation report shocked Wall Street, but it shocked the whole country. So for them to put on some kind of celebratory concert with James Taylor or whoever is really a slap in the face and the back of the hand to typical working folks who are getting clobbered by this inflation. And inflation is going to be the #1 issue in this election, as it must be. And Laura, you know, you're exactly right. Typical family income has declined under Biden after it was soaring under Trump, beating the prior several presidents. But look at food prices and grocery prices are now showing massive inflation. Food prices up 11%, grocery prices up 13%, and it's the 17th consecutive month of declining real wages. And what you got out there is wages are rising, folks are working hard, but inflation is rising faster, so they're able to buy less. I mean, not only food, you got, look, electricity up 16%, natural gas up 33%, new cars up 10%, used cars up 8%, services of all kinds up 7%, including, I mind, medical services are now jumping for the first time in many years. It's an embedded inflation, Laura. It's spreading, and because you have all these woke progressives running the White House with their taxing and they're regulating and they're turning off the fossil fuel spigot, you're not getting any help from the supply side of the economy. They're squelching and strangling what should be a massive boom. They inherited a boom. Now it's a bust. And the Fed is going to be left with the unenviable task of jacking up interest rates much higher and much longer than anybody thought possible not long ago. There's no supply side help here, so it's going to be left to the Fed, and that is going to wind up being very difficult for the economy.
Yeah, well, some of us were warning about it in the spring of 2021, but they just waved off all concerns, and now the chickens have come home to roost, to quote Reverend Wright. Now, Biden has been bragging about one thing in particular of late. Larry, watch this.
For all the criticism I got for gas prices, they're down more than $1.30 a gallon since the start of the summer.
Well, what he doesn't mention, though, Larry, is that average gas prices are $3.71 today, way higher where I live, but they were only $2.38 when he took office. So how does he have bragging rights here when there is no need for these increased energy costs? This is self-inflicted pain on the American people.
Yeah, well, the Green New Deal has shut off the spigots. Look, one reason oil and gas prices have come down is because they're depleting the strategic petroleum reserve. They're ruining our energy security. They're ruining our national security. And by the way, the biggest purchases they're making out there is somehow coming in the late summer and the early fall. I'm sure that has nothing to do with the election.
Yeah, we're going to get to that next segment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. No, I'm not. That was a joke. Look at this inflation is so deep and embedded that, yeah, whatever progress you're making in the short run on gas prices, you're giving it back on higher food and higher grocery prices. And the stores, you know, you still don't have baby formula on the shelves. And as I said before, electricity is going up, natural gas is going up, cars are going up. We are going to suffer a very difficult slump recession. The inflation, because there's no tax cuts or deregulation, no supply side help, the inflation is going to linger, Laura. It's going to go on longer. The Fed is going to have to clamp down.
Well, they're spending money we don't have,
with
Larry.
much higher interest rates.
Larry, they're spending money we don't have, and they printed hundreds of billions of dollars. And to give to people to stay home and not go to work, now you still can't get people back to work. Okay, so this is not rocket science. This is obvious.
Federal government is spending trillions. In fact, the Committee for a Responsible Budget just put out this year the Bidens have increased federal debt by almost $3 trillion.
Yeah, God,
they're spending too much. They're regulating too much. They're taxing too much. And they're printing too much money. They're taking incentives away to work, and they're taking incentives away to invest. It's exactly the opposite. But look at it this way. This woke progressive economics has failed, and it's failing badly. And today was a perfect example. So I'm going to argue that common sense American folks around the country see this failure. They're going to vote him out of office. The cavalry's coming, and it's going to be a big GOP win come November in both houses. And it's an inflation election.
I agree.
It's a border election. It's a fentanyl election. It's a crime election. And it's a parents running schools election. Real simple. Just 4 or 5 key points, and the GOP can roll and stop all this bad stuff. Stop it dead in the water.
Absolutely, and then they actually have to do something with their power and actually take dramatic, bold steps, which I know you're in favor of. Larry, great to see you as always tonight. Thank you. Now, if you can believe it, tonight marks the final primaries on the 2022 calendar. Thankfully, Fox's chief political anchor, I just ran into in the hallway, Brett Baer, is standing by to take us through all the big races. Brett, I've been in a time warp here, so tell us what's happening. This is exciting.
Well, I tell you, it is amazing, the final primaries, right before we head into the final stretch in November for the midterms, Delaware, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. Let's take you first out to New Hampshire and the Senate race there. New Hampshire is seen as a possible pickup for Republicans because they look at Maggie Hassan, the incumbent Democrat, as very vulnerable in New Hampshire on a number of different fronts. But the Republican primary is close right now. Retired Army General Don Bolduc against Chuck Morse, the state Senate president. Right now, we are about 400 votes separating the two. New Hampshire doesn't have a ton of votes collectively as a state. It's not a big place. But you can see as we dig down into some of these counties, this is Bolduc's home in Belknap County. He campaigned there a lot. You see a big separation there. Again, not in vote totals, but here in Rockingham County, just a big dump of votes for Chuck Morse. So what we're seeing here is a very, very tight race, 41% in. This is probably going to go for a while before we get a winner here. One of the interesting things about these races this time, and it's a storyline that we've seen all across the country, is that Democrats have been spending money going for Republicans, MAGA Republicans in some cases, that they think are more vulnerable against their Democratic incumbents. And New Hampshire is one of those places. $53 million Democrats have spent in various races. This is one of them, and we'll see how this pans out. Now, let's go to the congressional races. First, the second congressional race in New Hampshire. And right now, the update is that it's really close. You can see George Hansel there is leading 34% over Bob Burns. That, again, is a race where Democrats put money to try to get Burns to win this race. That's not over yet, but George Hansel is in a good position. If we go to the first congressional district, this is 2 former Trump aides, Matt Mowers and Carolyn Levitt. It looks like Carolyn Levitt has the early lead here. It's not over yet in New Hampshire. There for this race, they go up against Chris Pappas, the winner of this. The other one is Ann Custer. But Republicans feel confident about that. I want to take you really quickly to a governor's race that we're watching that's fascinating, and that is the incumbent governor of Rhode Island. Daniel McKee is facing a challenger in Helena Foulkes that is a CVS executive who campaigned pretty much solely on education in the wake of COVID and how bad it is. This is a sitting governor, Democratic governor of Rhode Island, who is in a real dogfight here to see if he can pull this out. We'll watch this closely, but a businesswoman on the other side, Ashley Collis, is the Republican that will face the winner of this. Laura, we'll send it back to you.
Wow, those are tight, Brett. And I love the upstart coming up against the incumbent. I always love those stories. Unbelievable. Yeah. Brett, thank you for staying up for us tonight.
You bet.
All right, the one thing Biden's team is bragging about is that, as was just mentioned,